Welcome to The Creative Present, a show that's dedicated to expanding your creative self-expression and at the same time, getting your projects done. And I'm your host, Joshua Townsend. I find the game of the creative process to be an endless game and filled with so many possibilities and so much joy and excitement and opportunities for discovery, not only of myself, but of the project I'm working on and the world around me and other people. What I do is I create opportunities to work on this on a daily basis. And a lot of that work is built around the mundane, the everyday. Essentially, what we do as creatives is that we take something that's unconscious and then we become aware of it and then we make it conscious and then we put it out through our art form. So there could be a situation where people are underneath a beautiful blue sky and it has white puffy clouds, and largely people are unconscious of it, and myself as an artist might be unconscious of it, and I become conscious of it. I see, oh wow, what a beautiful one. And then I make it very conscious. I become aware of it and how it feels to me and how it influences me and how I feel about it. And then I create a piece of art around the blue skies with the white puffy clouds, and then I share it with other people, and they in turn have appreciation or become aware of the blue skies or the white puffy clouds. That's one of the games that we play as artists. Andy Warhol famously turned a can of tomato soup, Campbell's tomato soup, into an icon. Marilyn Monroe made even more iconic through noticing something in the mundane, but because of how we see it, how he sees it, it created a larger context. Here we go. This is really, really finely tuned work. One of the negative aspects that a lot of actors and some writers go through is that they become self-conscious. And they feel that the self-consciousness is inhibiting or gets in their way, makes them smaller. Like as I'm sharing this with you, I feel myself getting tighter and my hands are going in like I'm compressing or contracting. So that's that phase where you become self-conscious, you become smaller, you become a little inhibited because you were not aware of something and now you are. And then as you work with it or develop it, then you've changed that from something that's self-conscious to something that's conscious, and then perhaps even self-aware. And then when you're self-aware of something, then I can enter and exit freely, meaning I can use it or not. It's a tool. It doesn't run me, I run it. So when I want to be more present, I can go, okay, I want to be more present, and I have skill sets or attunements that I can work with that will help me be more present when I become aware that I'm not so present. In other times, in days gone by, I could be aware that I'm not present, but I wouldn't have the skill sets or the facility to be able to tune myself into being more present with the other person, even though I noticed it. So there's a big difference, there's a big gap there between becoming awareness of something or a knowledge of something and then actually acting on it, implementing it in the moment, and that's key. What we need to do is we need to go from and being okay with being self-conscious to becoming self-aware, and just understanding that the process of becoming self-conscious of something is actually a healthy thing because it means you're on the road to becoming more self-aware. And if we reversed it, it would sound like this. Instead of being self-conscious, we become conscious of self. That's good. And then self-aware, aware of self. That's great too. A lot of times I'll go through periods where I do daily walks, usually in the morning and evening times. And I'll be walking in an urban environment. And so because I'm walking in an urban environment, I'm going to be walking on a sidewalk, and then you get to a street, and then you cross the street, and then you keep going on the sidewalk. As you traverse the street, you have to come off of the sidewalk, go across the street in the crosswalk, and then you step up onto the sidewalk again on the other side. Now, what I noticed was, and I became aware of it, first I became self-conscious of it, and then I tuned it to becoming self-aware. I became aware that I would always step up with my right foot first after I crossed the street, and I went back up onto the sidewalk, and it would be the midsection of my foot, of my tennis shoe, would hit the sidewalk first. Always the right side, always the right foot. So I became aware of that. Okay. Then I was like, okay, I want to consciously change it to my left side, right? Because I became aware of something. Now I want to be able to have more range. I want to have more range of expression, more range, more availability, less unconsciousness. So then, as I crossed the street, I could manipulate myself, meaning I would slow down, become aware of my breathing, maybe adjust my stride a little bit, and I could make it so that my left foot went up on the sidewalk first. But it was with a lot of conscious effort. And I had to do that probably 3 to 5 times, at least, maybe more. But it was never smooth. It was never part of my stride like it was on the right side. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. So even though I can consciously command myself to put my left foot up on the sidewalk first, I couldn't make it such an integrated part of who I am without giving it a lot of effort and doing like little stutter steps or little adjustments so that I could actually do it, not like the right side. I thought, oh, that's interesting. So then I did that for another 5, 7, 10 times until I could get to the point where I could, without breaking stride, without making any modifications, place my left foot on the sidewalk first. And after a while, I was able to do it. And I thought, that's so interesting because this is a gross motor skill, meaning it's something that one of my limbs does. There's a lot of parts that have to participate. I can watch it to see if I did it or not. There's a lot of things going on, but at least I can monitor it from the external level. Now, what I want to bring in is thoughts. So if it takes that much effort, especially in the beginning, to modify my step, my stride that I do 24/7, 365 while I'm awake, then imagine what it's like to alter a thought, which is the most subtle, which has no external moving parts that I can identify with and use as a feedback loop. Much more subtle, much more nuanced. But I need to actually go into the same process. I need to go to the same process of becoming unconscious of my thought, to becoming self-conscious, conscious of self, of that thought, seeing how it plays out, and then making a new idea or a new thought that I want to put in there, and then to allow myself to be self-conscious and to be awkward and to be not smooth until it becomes an integrated part of my process, where I have the range, I have now the ability to either put my right foot on the sidewalk first or my left foot on the sidewalk first. I'm now at option. Before I wasn't at option. I was completely unconscious. For a while I was self-conscious, and now I'm just aware, and now I can implement it either way without losing stride, without losing that misstep. So no matter if you're working with your stride, with your walking, if you're working with a new thought or a new feeling, you're going to have a process where you need to integrate it hopefully without judgment. And I was thinking about children. And children, when they're first learning to walk, they fall a lot and they sit down their little butts, and then they get up and they struggle, and eventually they start walking. The parents hopefully are around and they're encouraging that behavior and, giving the proper accolades. And it's the same thing with us. Except with us, we have a very fine trained judgment ability. So we're going to judge ourselves along the way, which will bring in more self-consciousness. self-consciousness from the negative side, whereas the children don't normally have self-consciousness at that level. We want to be very mindful of when we're breaking unconscious patterns and we're on our way to develop new consciously chosen patterns or opportunities or behaviors or being at choice or expanding your range, that we give ourselves the space and the time and the permission and the support of going through these phases. It's so important. I really encourage everyone to take something that's very mundane. Like, for instance, I also work with every time I step out of the shower. Do I step out of the shower with my left leg first or my right leg first? I go through the same sequence. I become conscious of what I'm unconscious of. Then I go through a period where I'm self-conscious of consciously choosing to do the opposite leg. And then at a certain point, I just become aware that I have a choice of which side I want to exit the shower with at that day, that time. Same thing with sitting up from the floor. I sit on the floor to do my breathing work, and when I get up, I notice, do I lean on my right side? Do I lean on my left side? How do I navigate that rising up from the floor? And then I do the opposite, and I keep doing the opposite until I'm at choice, leading to more range, more possibilities. And just to bring it home, it's the same thing as actors. Actors, and to some degree writers, are going to be working and developing characters who will have a different way of comporting themselves as I do, as the writer does, as the actor who's playing that character does. And then I need to consciously make different choices, integrate it to the point where I am no longer self-conscious of it. It becomes a self-awareness. And then I can expand that awareness to make it seem as if it's my behavior, my thought, my feeling. So that's a very detailed explanation of how we do what we're going to do and how important it is to map it, to understand it, to give yourself a real life experience, because it's not enough just to understand it intellectually. You have to go through the physical, somatic experience of doing it. And once your body knows it, you can then put it onto, project, map it onto any other area that you want in your life, in your creative life, and also your personal life. So again, we're going from making something that's completely unconscious to something that we become conscious of to some degree, and then we make it self-conscious, meaning we're actually working with it in a new and different way until the point we become self-aware. And then the awareness expands and grows. So that's going from self-conscious to self-aware. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening. If you love what you're listening to, please subscribe and then share with fellow creatives. For more, go to joshuatownsend.com.